The Handkerchief by Great 78. Chapter 93. Splinched. Saprophytes. Signet rings. He sat down upon his divan in the suite, exhaling a long breath that he did not realize that he had been holding. He took out the handkerchief to see if he could find where Hermione and the others had gone. Immediately he noticed the spots of blood. "Vinca Major, are you all right? Hermione, please answer. I need to know if you're all right." There was no answer. The handkerchief did not change temperatures. "Please, love, let me know what's going on. Are you safe?" More blood was oozing onto the handkerchief. Fuck. Was she dying? God, did she infiltrate the ministry just to be murdered by Yaxley? Then, miraculously, words bloomed onto the handkerchief. "Splinched!" Oh my God, Draco thought. Images of Montague flashing in his mind. She'd splinched herself. Draco considered throwing caution to the wind and apparating to her in order to help her. He felt sure that he could use the blood on the handkerchief to find the destination, but he wasn't sure if he could perform the counter-charm for splinching effectively. Perhaps he could apparate her to St. Mungo's. "Hurry! Quickly, in my bag! There's a small bottle labelled Essence of Dittany." Draco stopped short in his panic. Why was she addressing him as though he were Potter? "Quickly!" Yes, certainly she wasn't speaking to him. More words appeared a moment later. "He's fainted. Unstopper it for me, Harry. My hands are shaking." She was with Potter, but talking about someone else. Weasley. Weasley must be the one who was splinched, and she was trying to help him. After a moment, she said, "It's all I feel safe doing. There are spells that would put him completely right, but I daren't try, in case I do them wrong and cause more damage. He's lost so much blood already." There was a long pause. Clearly Hermione was listening to something Potter was saying. "Harry, I don't think we're going to be able to go back there. As we disapparated, Yaxley caught hold of me, and I couldn't get rid of him. He was too strong, and he was still holding on when we arrived at Grimmauld Place, and then, well, I think he must have seen the door, and thought we were stopping there, so he slackened his grip, and I managed to shake him off, and I brought us here instead." Grimmauld Place. The name stirred a memory in Draco, long forgotten in the fog of years past and spells cast. An image of shrunken elf heads stuck to the wall, of brown tea dribbling from yellowed teeth onto pink silk. The Black House, the place they'd been hiding these past few weeks. "Harry, I think he can. I forced him to let go with a revulsion jinx, but I'd already taken him inside the Fidelius Charm's protections. Since Dumbledore died, we're secret keepers, so I've given him the secret, haven't I?" Another long pause, then, "Harry, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She had no reason to be sorry. She'd gotten them free of the ministry, away from Yaxley. There was another span of time. Then, "How do you feel?" Someone must have answered her. Possibly Weasley, woken up from his fainting spell. She spoke again, likely in answer to a question. "In the woods where they held the Quidditch World Cup. I wanted somewhere enclosed, under cover, and this was the first place he'd tried to protect her against the Death Eaters, he thought, a thrill running through him. She needed someone under cover. He knew she thought of this place as a connection to him. He exhaled a sigh of relief, of love. She was safe. She was speaking again. "If we're staying, we should put up some protective enchantments around the place. Salvio Hexia, Protego Totalum, Repello Muggletum, Muffliato. You could get out the tent, Harry. In the bag." Draco smiled to himself. She'd used the protective enchantments he'd recommended to her. The handkerchief heated again. "Tergio." The blood spots disappeared from the handkerchief. "Just wanted to let you know we were okay. Thank you for your help. I love you. Talk to you soon." Then the handkerchief was empty. He had so many questions for her. Were they successful in getting the locket? Did she think Yaxley was still at Grimmauld Place? Were they going to stay put there for a while? A few hours later the handkerchief heated again. "Can you meet quickly?" "Yes. How can I find you? That forest is pretty big." "I'm next to a stream. 1 second." A corner of the handkerchief was suddenly damp, and he focused on the coolness of the water, the earthy scent of moss and trees growing beside the stream. He closed his eyes and disapparated. Her copper eyes glowed in the semi-darkness, and he reached out for her like a man gone overboard, grasping at a life-preserver. She kissed him with fervour, running her hands through his hair and hugging him close. "I kept searching for Percy. When I saw you, I was so worried something had gone wrong," she managed to get out between kisses. "I transformed back after I met Potter in the lift. Was hoping he would just keep going down to find you." He labbed at her neck, relishing the slightly salty taste of her sweat on his tongue. "I'm glad you got her to wear the locket. I don't think we could have found it otherwise," Hermione said as she pushed her hands under his shirt, running her hands along the muscles of his back. "You don't want to know what I had to do to make that happen. Let's just say I hope Percy Weasley likes much older, toady-looking women." At this, his witch began giggling uncontrollably. He held her close, enjoying the feel of her movement and vitality in his arms. "So, what are you doing out here alone?" Draco asked. "It doesn't seem safe for you to be off by yourself. Not that I'm complaining, of course," he murmured, bringing his hands up under her shirt to caress the soft skin just under her breasts. "I'm trying to find food for our dinner. I didn't pack any food in my bag. We were supposed to go back to Black House for dinner. A creature was making a steak and kidney pie, if I'm not mistaken. But I messed up and allowed Yaxley to get inside the wards. Harry was so upset. He's worried that creature will be tortured for our whereabouts." Do you want me to try and find out if creature's all right? I'm pretty sure Pym can get through the Black wards, since he's worked for the Black family," he asked. "No, if they've gotten into Black House, we can't do anything about it. And even if you verify that they aren't there, Harry would never feel safe going there after this. We'll stay in the tent." "You should have told me about not having food. I could have had Tiffy make up sandwiches, roast chicken, mash, whatever you want." "Oh, yes, that would have been very believable. Me scavenging the forest and finding roast chicken and mash. Entirely plausible," she laughed. "I think these mushrooms might be all we can hope for." "Merlin, Granger, at least tell me you've got wine so you can make a decent marsala with your mushrooms." They giggled quietly for a moment. "So, did you get the locket?" "Oh, yes, I forgot to tell you. I managed to get it off of her, and also duplicate it so she won't realize it's gone." Hermione gave a brief rundown of what happened in the courtroom and after. Draco was silently awed by this witch. To perform such a complex bit of magic under that level of stress was quite impressive. "I'm glad it worked out, then. So now the 3 of you are off doing whatever else, then?" he ventured. "Yes," she smiled at him. "Whatever else." "And you're not going to run off and marry the weasel after living in a tent with him, right?" "Most assuredly not," she whispered into his neck. "Okay, well, you shouldn't be gone much longer. Potter will be sending out a search committee for you. Besides, I'm certain they're both looking forward to—" At this, Draco peered into the small basket she carried, trying to mask his look of disgust at what he found. "Is that dirt?" "They're mushrooms." Okay. When we're done with all of this, and we're living happily ever after, you won't mind if Tiffy does our cooking, right?" he asked with a huge grin. "If you pay her well, I suppose not." "She'd probably pay me so long as she doesn't have to cook these dirt clods, my." Despite her stern look, Hermione's huffy facade was cracking as small snorts of laughter broke free from her. When they'd regained their composure, she asked, "So, what's next for you? I read that Snape had taken over at Hogwarts, but you're not there." "Oh, I actually leave in the morning. The Dark Lord has, of course, given me an assignment. I'm to keep an eye out for any whispers of insurrection or army building, and also tell Snape if I hear about any students who might be in touch with you three."
Good thing we don't know anyone who might build a student army, or send private secret messages to one of us, right?
"Nobody comes to mind," Draco said, nibbling a love bite just under her ear. She smiled against his cheek, and he moved to her lips, giving her a deep, heated kiss. "I love you, Hermione."
"I love you too, Draco."
The best thing about not having to eat his meals at Malfoy Manor for a while was that he would not have to witness the deplorable table manners and continual failures in oral hygiene that defined Bellatrix Lestrange. Draco thought that watching the piggish Vince and Greg absolutely murder a Hogwarts feast on a daily basis had to be better than this.
"Neffykins, we're going to miss you,"
Bellatrix sing-songed in his direction. She was in one of her manic moods today.
"Got to get a good education, you know. I myself was head girl my year. 15 OWLs, if you can believe it."
Draco could not. It was widely known that the most OWLs the school had ever awarded was 12, a rare feat that few managed. Even Hermione, with her severe distaste for Professor Trelawney, couldn't manage it. "Really? What were they in, Aunt Bellatrix?" Draco asked, unable to stop himself. Narcissa's eyes twitched in his direction, then flitted back to the blank wall opposite her.
"Oh, you know, this and that, the usual things,"
the insane witch said dismissively.
"So, are they sending the Hogwarts Express back for anyone that was too slow to take it the first time?"
"No, I believe Professor Snape's flu is being connected for me. Everyone else is already there."
"Ah, so you're just a lazy cretin who is too good to go on the 1st of September with everyone else."
Bellatrix smirked, and Pettigrew gave a wheezing laugh from his end of the table. "That's right," Draco supplied. He left off the small but obvious detail that, until Snape was named as headmaster on September 1st, Draco would likely not have been welcomed back to the school. The only credible source for his innocence in the murder of Albus Dumbledore was the word of Harry Potter, who was essentially a wanted man right now.
"Well, hopefully you can scrape together a few NEWTs. Your mother was such a poor student. I'm amazed they allowed her to finish it all. Perhaps you can bring a bit of honour back to the family name."
Draco narrowed his eyes as he stared at the awful witch's teeth. He knew his mother had earned 7 NEWTs, certainly nothing that anyone would consider a poor showing. Breakfast done, Draco levitated his trunks, the birds in their cage and Thorn's empty cage, down the stairs. Bellatrix was walking up the staircase as he made his way down with his things.
"Why do you have those terrible birds, Draco? Don't you get tired of hearing all that incessant squawking?"
Bellatrix eyed the birds critically. Draco fought the urge not to ram into her with his weighty trunk. "No, I find them to be enjoyable company," Draco answered. Certainly far more likable than Bellatrix. The evil woman continued up the stairs, muttering about annoying, bothersome birds. Draco, who recalled all too well what Bellatrix did to things she found annoying and bothersome, resolved to never leave the birds at the manor so long as she was there. Lucius, Narcissa, Pym, and Pettigrew waited for him in the flue parlour to see him off. Draco tried to hide his annoyance that the mousy, silver-handed wizard was interjecting himself into their last bit of family time, but he was certain that it was on Voldemort's orders. Draco noticed his mother had dressed up for the occasion, just as she'd done for his first time going on the Hogwarts Express. Her skin and eyes did not glow with the same warmth, and her hair looked more dull these days, but the fierceness was still burning in her eyes.
"Enjoy your last year at school, my dragon. I hope your studies go well. Will you play Quidditch again this year?"
Draco recognized his mother's attempt to make the year seem like any normal school year, and he appreciated it. He nodded to her, not trusting himself to speak. Never mind the fact that Snape would be in charge, that most of his classes would undoubtedly be taken over by Death Eaters, and that a small portion of the students were currently being hunted down across the country. The biggest difference in Draco's mind would be that Hermione would not be there with him. As if to make this point more finely for him, Lucius interjected, "Finally, first place in grades, then, hopefully." Draco closed his eyes briefly in annoyance. Lucius stepped towards him, holding out a small wooden box. "This was intended to go to you on your 17th birthday." Draco opened the box, finding the Malfoy signet ring, a tapered platinum band with a dark blue stone at the top, an elaborate M carved into the lapis lazuli. "I don't know that you have earned this, other than by birthright, but it is yours, nonetheless," Lucius said drolly. "Goodbye, Father," Draco said simply, shaking Lucius's hand quickly. The older wizard turned and left, his cane tapping loudly on the stone floor. Pym gave him a stoic handshake, and a firm, "Pym will see you at Christmas, Master Draco." Then the elf followed his father from the room. Draco turned to his mother. "You'll be safe here." She nodded rapidly, tears shining in her eyes. "I'll see you at Christmas, Mum."
"An early Christmas present, then," Narcissa said, holding out a small black box, similar to the wooden one that his father had offered him. Nestled on a green silk cushion inside was the black signet ring. The gold band curved around the oval onyx stone, carved with the black family crest. He slid the Malfoy ring onto his left pinky, sizing it to fit magically, then put the black ring on his right ring finger, doing the same. As he did so, he moved his wand just a smidge out of his sleeve holster, and performed a non-verbal charm in Pettigrew's direction. Ventus localis. A tiny gust of wind, seemingly from nowhere, swept into the room, stirring up ash from the fireplace and swirling it a bit near Pettigrew, who commenced to huffing, puffing, and sneezing fitfully. "Keep your head down and stay clear of any of his people there, Draco," Narcissa whispered quietly, too quietly to be picked up by the otherwise occupied Pettigrew. Draco hugged her, then held her hands as they drew apart. He pressed a gold galleon into her palm discreetly. "Read the edge," he whispered quietly. Her eyes widened, then she appeared to understand, smiling at him. "I love you, my dragon."
"Love you too, Mum." He locked eyes briefly and defiantly with Pettigrew, offering the sneezing, wheezing wizard a parting sneer. And, with that, he levitated his things once more, stepped to the fireplace, chucked in a handful of the green flue powder, and said, "Hogwarts, Headmaster's office." Chapter 94. The New Faculty. The headmaster's office swirled into view before Draco was ready for it. The flue spit him out a bit forcefully, causing him to tip forward, catching himself with his hands upon landing, inhaling a bit of soot and ash. He coughed a bit, pushing himself upright and standing as quickly as his dignity would allow. "I'm so pleased you could be bothered to join us, Draco." Professor Snape's overly droll voice intoned. The young wizard looked up to find a handful of Death Eaters and Snape. "Quite the welcome committee," Draco said uncomfortably to the room at large. He looked around, recognizing the Carrows, Avery, Mulciber, and Rabistan Lestrange. "We ain't here for you, Gov!" Amicus cackled, elbowing the ribs on the nearest Death Eater. Avery pushed him roughly backwards. "Having a little faculty meeting before classes start up, that's all." "Is this everyone, then?" Draco asked as Snape waved his wand over Draco's belongings, relocating them to his dormitory. "Everyone that matters," Rabistan said roughly. "You can move along, Pipsqueak." He gave a brush-off gesture in Draco's direction. "Young Malfoy is as much a part of this discussion as anyone," Professor Snape said waspishly, and as much as Draco appreciated someone speaking up for him, a large part of him would have been happy to leave immediately.
As I was saying, the only staff members that are suspected to be members of the Order of the Phoenix are Professors McGonagall and Hagrid. Mulciber, you shall be following McGonagall, sitting in on her classes, to ensure she's not speaking subversively with the students. Lestrange, you'll do the same with Hagrid. Do I have to sit in with that old bat? You know she hated me all through school. Never got above an acceptable with her.
Mulciber scratched his chin uncomfortably.
Well, I suppose it's good that you aren't being asked to teach the class, then,
Snape drawled. Avery and Amicus snickered loudly.
And you think Hagrid's got his beast under control, do you? I know there was that funny business with a Thunderbird a few years back,
Rabistan said, with an edge to his voice. Draco spoke up. It was a hippogriff, and it was largely blown out of proportion. The hippogriff in question ran away. Rabistan did not look comforted.
And I'll be with Slughorn, then?
Avery asked. This struck Draco as odd. As far as he knew, Slughorn was not a member of the Order of the Phoenix.
Correct,
said Snape briskly.
Wonder why the Dark Lord's targeting old Sluggy,
mused Avery.
Doesn't especially seem to be Order material, does he?
I think you've hit upon the conundrum exactly. As a Slytherin, Professor Slughorn would seem naturally inclined to be sympathetic to our side. Perhaps not ready to join as a full member of our group, but willing to offer assistance when called upon. Horace has decided to stay decidedly neutral, however. That displeases the Dark Lord.
Why not just oust the old tosser, then?
Alecto piped up.
The Dark Lord respects the institutions of Hogwarts and its rich history. As such, he understands that the rules governing the school do not allow a headmaster to dismiss a sitting professor without due cause. As none of the teachers have done anything to justify dismissal, they shall continue on in their current roles until such time as they prove themselves unfit.
Snape sneered at the thought.
With the noted exceptions of defense against the dark arts, and muggle studies, of course,
Professor Snape finished, tilting his head in the direction of the disturbed siblings, and Draco swallowed the bile that had rose in his throat without warning at the memory of Charity Burbage's body suspended above his formal dining table. Draco tried not to grimace. The idea that either of these creepy, bumbling idiots could impart any knowledge about muggles was laughable, and that one of them would be teaching defense against the dark arts seemed ludicrous.
Draco here will act as a student informant. If there is any talk between students of an insurrection, of fighting against the Dark Lord, he is to come directly to me. Likewise, if there is talk amongst the faculty and staff of the same, I wish to hear of it first. Make no mistake. Justice will be meted out swiftly and harshly.
Professor Snape eyed them all sternly.
Do I make myself clear?
They all grumbled assent.
Classes are set to begin at 9 o'clock. Please go to your classrooms. Amicus, you will find the defense classroom on the 3rd floor. Alecto, Muggle Studies, is the 1st floor. Draco, I have your schedule here. You have a free period first this morning. Please stay behind, so that we might go over a few important things.
The Carrow siblings made a "ooh" noise, as though they assumed that Draco was already in trouble with the new headmaster. As they filed out, Draco noticed with revulsion that Alecto seemed to leer at him, in neither a sexual
or a menacing way, perhaps even both. It made him extremely glad that he wasn't enrolled in Muggle studies. As the last of them filed out, Snape let out a long breath and dropped into his chair behind the large, imposing desk. It was only now that the room had emptied that Draco was able to look around properly. There were several small, delicate-looking instruments scattered about. An empty, ornate bird perch stood near the centre of the room, an odd relic perhaps left over from Dumbledore's days. An intricate glass-front cabinet stood, filled to the brim with small vials and bottles in various colours. A stone pensieve sat inside the cabinet in pride of place. Perhaps most imposing of all were the various portraits that hung around the room. Many of them were asleep, including the unassuming one of Dumbledore, directly behind the formidable headmaster's desk, Draco noticed thankfully. One portrait, a dark-haired wizard with a pointy beard and hat, eyed him keenly. Draco stared back with more than a bit of challenging impertinence, and the wizard in the portrait seemed to nod approvingly. "As you can tell, this year will be vastly different from your previous years at Hogwarts, Draco. Rabistan is known for his cruel streak, and the Carrows make Dolores Umbridge look kindly and welcoming." Snape massaged the bridge of his nose in a pained way. "Yes, sir. What do you need of me?" "Just as I said to the others, if you catch wind of any kind of insurrection or army-building talk, come to me immediately. The others cannot find out. I will do what I can to protect the students, but I can only do so much. Help the students if you must. Just know that you are taking a very big risk if you do so." "Did you choose the Carrows?" Draco asked in confusion. They seemed an odd choice. Draco guessed that between the two of them their last use of a book was as something to whack each other upon the head with. Snape sighed and summoned a bottle from the glass-front cabinet next to them. He tipped out a large measure of cinnamon-spiced vodka into a glass. He pointed the bottle at Draco questioningly. Draco waved the bottle off. He'd just finished breakfast less than an hour ago. "The Carrows are disposable to the Dark Lord. He doesn't care to have them around any more than anyone else does. On the positive side, together they are as dumb as a cauldron of spit, so hopefully they'll be malleable and easily duped." "And the others?" Draco asked. Snape smiled grimly, as if taking grotesque pleasure from a private joke. "Mulciber was a terrible student. Barely scraped together 4 OWLs over the course of his 5th, 6th, and 7th years. Learning, studying, theoretical knowledge were never his strong suits. I've no doubt Minerva will send him running for the Hogwarts Express within the month." Draco smiled along with the dark-haired wizard. "And Lestrange and Avery?" "Lestrange is an overbearing brute, but he's afraid of most creatures. I give him a few weeks with Hagrid at most. As for Avery is a strange case. He's a bit of an enigma, even to me. We were friends at Hogwarts, you see. He and I, and sometimes Mulciber, when we allowed him. The two of them had dark senses of humour. They enjoyed pranks, teasing. I was guilty of the same, but there were some who were put off by that. As time went on, years later, after Hogwarts, I felt that Avery had grown a bit, matured, if you will. I think that when the Dark Lord vanished, there was a large part of him, a part to which he would never own up, that was relieved. He wasn't alone in that regard, of course. Professor Snape had a far-away look in his eyes, and Draco was certain that the headmaster had forgotten his presence for a moment.
Avery claimed to be imperious, and a part of me nearly believed that, oddly enough. Not that he did not wish to become a Death Eater when he first joined, mind you, but that almost felt like his sentiment near the end. Avery began working in the Department of Mysteries, and I think it was there he developed a bit more compassion. I was told by Mulciber that when everyone appeared in that graveyard in Little Hangleton, he begged the Dark Lord to forgive not just him, but everyone gathered there. When he gave the Dark Lord information about the Department of Mysteries, he often left out small but crucial details. Don't get me wrong, Draco. Avery is not ready to join the Order. But I think that if you use just the two of us as an example, the world is not just made up of strictly good people and strictly bad people. There are plenty of people within whom both good and bad exist. Avery, I believe, may be one of them, but only time will show it.
Professor Snape drained his drink and stood, brushing imaginary lint from his robes.
And now I must go and ensure that the first teaching session of the new order goes smoothly. I trust you still have your means of staying in touch with certain people.
Snape did not wait for an answer.
They may prove useful to you. I shall keep mine about my person as well.
Snape withdrew the gold galleon and held it to the light.
Quite a remarkable bit of magic.
You know she modelled it on the Dark Mock, right? Draco smirked wryly.
Well, the improvements are much appreciated.
Draco turned to go, the large door sliding out of his way, leading him to a spiral staircase that moved steadily downwards. Behind him he could just make out two voices.
He seems to have a lot of strength and will that is well known within my family line. That will serve him well in life. Shame that he has a proclivity for muggle-born witches, but I suppose no one is perfect. Isn't that right, Professor Snape?
There were a few boos and hisses, then Snape's voice.
I have asked you repeatedly to drop it. Black.
Once in his room, he opened the door to the birdcage so that they could have a bit of freedom, and took out the galleon that he had marked with an M for Mum. Earlier he had sent a message before he had even given it to her, saying, "Read this when it gets hot. Hold in both hands and speak to send message back." She had replied, her message going on quite a bit longer than his. Most of it was a complaint about Pettigrew, and how, when he drummed his fingers on the table, the metal fingertips left tiny divots in the wood. Also, when he chewed, he sounded like a small animal. But she had also sent him best wishes for his studies this year. Draco chuckled. He had not told her to keep the messages brief. Staring at the edge of a coin for several minutes at a time could be exhausting on the eyes. But the magic needed to make a handkerchief of parchment, like the ones he and Hermione had made, were much more involved. And besides, he rather liked that their two handkerchiefs were the only ones. He wrote back, "Thanks, Mum. Try to steer clear of Pettigrew. Also, for this coin, short messages are better, but do not censor your thoughts for me." He checked his schedule. He had about 20 minutes until his first class, Care of Magical Creatures. It brought a feeling of excitement to his gut. Not only would he get a chance to see an old friend, but he would get to enjoy the show that Rabistan Lestrange was about to put on without his knowledge. "Vinca Major," he said, removing the handkerchief from his pocket. "How are you? I'm about to go to my first class. A handful of Death Eaters are here, some following Order member teachers, some teaching defense and Muggle studies. It should be an interesting year." Draco checked the rest of his schedule. Everything was in order except He noticed the addition of Muggle Studies, compulsory, on his schedule. Ugh. He flopped back onto his bed, and the two sister birds took the opportunity to land in his hair, wings flapping as though trying to create a nest. He closed his eyes and laughed.
"Where have you been, mate? We missed you in Italy this summer."
Theo charged into the room, looking impossibly tanned and better rested than Draco had ever seen him look before.
"Thought you were coming to the Universiade."
Theo flopped onto his own bed, and was immediately amused by the baby bird, who seemed to want to treat his robes as its own personal racetrack.
"These are new."
I kind of acquired them last year, and sorry about Italy. Believe me, I would have much preferred to come there and do that than to do the things I did this summer." Theo sat up and looked at him with a knowing look in his eyes.
"Yeah, I can only imagine, mate."
The darker-haired wizard sighed and sat back up, taking some books out of his bag and putting others in.
"See you in potions, then."
"Yeah, see you soon." Draco sat up and gathered his books, which his mother had helpfully had delivered to the house soon after his Hogwarts letter had arrived, in hopes that he would be able to go back. He headed out to the dormitory, through the common room and up the stairs, and out the castle front doors. Thank you for listening to this chapter of The Handkerchief by Great 78.